Welcome to SoulWhat, a SoulTopia production. Every Tuesday, Michelle and Roger Welch take a deep dive into the intriguing and proactive world of metaphysics, a world beyond our human perception. They'll talk to empaths, readers, and other guests from all walks of life to find out what's hiding under the surface, uncover the mysteries of our modern world, and reveal the answers you need to live a happy, healthier life. Now, here's your hosts, Michelle and Roger Welch.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing this week? How are you doing, Roger?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm doing great. And Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'll have to speak up. I don't have my mic plugged in just yet.
Oh, I apologize.
You caught me early.
And we have with us in studio a very good, I'd say a very good now, good friend of mine over the years, an acquaintance. We're getting to know each other.
Friends.
So Dr. Toni Munoz-Hunt, and we're just going to go right into it. So we'll have a lot of time, right?
Yep.
And are you ready?
Nope.
Okay. No. We usually talk a little bit about the weather, but who wants to talk about today? Well, let's ask. Did you take cover today?
Hell no.
I did not.
I
Did
thought it was
you?
road construction.
I was like in a parking structure at the time. So
Yeah.
like the rain was coming in sideways and all crazy. And I'm like, well, you know, you're going to be somewhere. This is probably the place to be.
Yeah. Well, I did not. I was writing the third book, and not doing much writing, and I did not take cover because I just didn't want to. Did you? Is your mic on,
It
Mr.?
is now. Yes, it is.
Did you take cover?
No, actually, I was at work at the studio, so it my radio instincts kicked in, which was anytime there was a storm, anything that, even if the fire alarms went off in the building, we just stayed there and kept going because somebody had to keep the thing on the air. But I don't think there's nowhere I'd rather be than in that studio because it's completely surrounded by concrete and just like all completely shut off. So it's safe. So I had no excuse not to keep working.
Yeah. Well, I need to start giving respect to. I grew up and went in Longview, Texas, and Dallas, Texas. There weren't tornadoes. Like, seriously, right? I mean, so I need to start respecting the
In
weather
Longview,
a
there
little
were?
bit. In Longview, I don't remember that. I remember being in
my
Tulsa,
gosh.
Oklahoma
I'm
at
gonna
my grandmother's, and we'd go down in the whatever.
I'm pretty sure y'all had tornadoes.
Yeah.
In Longview?
Yeah.
Oh, they probably.
I don't know. Maybe
probably
the,
just let
maybe
me
the
not
pines.
take cover. They were like, "Oh, just go play outside, Michelle."
Yeah, maybe the pines slowed them down, but
Yes.
I definitely out here out in Parker County, we had tornadoes all the time.
Yeah.
Really?
Growing up, yeah, I've been through
I
several.
just figured it was all global warming. Blame it on global warming.
Could be that too.
Yeah, so we're excited to have Dr. Toni Munoz-Hunt with us tonight. Dr. Hunt is a visiting assistant professor and incoming director of CUSLI, the Center for U.S. Latin America Initiatives at the University of Texas at Dallas. Dr. Munoz-Hunt completed her PhD in 2021, where her dissertation, Double Hybridization and Berkonics, literary works. I'm laughing now because we talked about how to pronounce all these things. But I love this name because you made up some of these words, didn't you? Like hybridization. We'll talk about it in a little while. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Double hybridization and Berkonics literary works. How the United States turned Mexican Americans into the forgotten people. Became a hybrid work on a distinct population within the Latinx community. In 2020, she established the CUSLI Community Digital Archive Project to record the oral histories of this community. Utilizing her concept, this is your concept, double hybridization and autoethnography research methodology resulted in her children's book, Alboe Bakery. Her works have been featured in Borders in Globalization Review and Columbia Journal. In 2020, she won the Blue Mesa Review Nonfiction Prize for Border Sisters and has presented articles from the University Culture Center in Poland, you're going to pronounce that city for me, to University of Barcelona, Spain. Recently, she was named a 2022-2023 Mellon Applied History Fellow. and so much more. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's
And didn't-
always fun to sit there and while somebody reads your bio.
And when
you're
they
like,
butcher your bio, right?
No, it's,
right.
it's
No.
just funny. It's like, it's awkward, you know? Just-
You have done so much since, like, this is all since 2021. I mean, when we met, you were working on your master's, I think.
yeah, I think
When we
so.
met at
Because
the-
it's been a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was then the Dallas Women's Foundation, but now Texas Women's Foundation. So, wow, you really accomplished a lot in that amount of time. But you were working
Thank you.
hard. You do a lot.
Yeah, I had been, let me try, I'm trying to think. Like, I graduated at 16 and graduated high school at 16. And then there was never a period where I wasn't in school. And because I was, paying for school and then also working in fashion at the time, so I would like take a semester off of school and then like work for a semester or work for a year and then go back to school for a year. So it was always this like back and forth kind of, battle with finishing my education. But at the same time, I think like living all over the world was an education in itself.
Oh, for sure.
You know.
And when you, what is the name of that I could
Biostock.
Biostock, Poland. Okay. And I do know Barcelona because there I have visited and I loved it actually. But
Barcelona's great.
I was thinking because when I met you, and how many years ago? Should we give that information up? I mean, do you remember? Was it?
I don't think I had
About
any.
10?
Did I have any of my kids yet?
You did
No.
not.
Yeah, so I was like pre-Darlington, and Darlington's 7, so like 8,
Maybe
9
8,
years
yeah.
ago. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a little while.
And so,
I remember she's so beautiful and so nice and just on and on and on. And I was like, who?
I was like, how
talking
can you be
about?
that smart, that beautiful, and so nice?
We just clicked right
and
away.
Right
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, and the thing is to be on this board. So just so everyone listening knows, was the Dallas Women's Foundation. It's now the Texas Women's Foundation. It's like the largest grant giving foundation in the world, I
Yes.
believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the fact that I was on it, I was like, how am I with these people? So it was, they are so intelligent. I mean, everyone, but it was a love for it because I've always really loved the boards I've served on and and been involved with Genesis actually for a really long time. So
Yeah.
Genesis Women's Shelter, people have heard me talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, I did.
Yep.
Yeah, I
did.
came straight home. I was like, oh my goodness, let me tell you.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was instant, I
Yeah.
think, for us. You just, you meet people and they're going to be a part of your tribe forever. Like,
Yeah.
that's how
love
that
that.
connection was.
Thank you for saying that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when did you realize you're going to make a big impact like this?
I don't think you ever feel like that. I think you just like you're passionate about what you're doing, and you keep going for it, and you collect people and stories and whatnot along the way, and you hold those people dear to you. And I feel like a lot of the things that I've done involve my tribe. I mean, you guys know because you're a part of this. And anytime I'm like working on an event or a new concept or a project, I call up my people. I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Do you want to join and be a part of it? Because I think we're never strong alone. We're stronger as a collective. And where I'm weak or lack, my tribe makes up for that. And I love that and I need that. And so I never think like, gosh, I'm going to make an impact today. I think I'm passionate about something. Nobody's doing it, or it's not, being given much light. And how can I do that? How can I provide light to this cause or this energy or this movement or whatever it is?
When did you kind of said about when you were 16. Can we go back a little bit before that?
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where were you born?
I'm from New Mexico originally.
Okay.
Interestingly, I was born in Texas. I was born in El Paso because that's our big city that's closest.
Right.
I grew up between El Paso and Las Cruces, and my town's called Mellon, my family's town. And so you just choose one or the other that you're going to go to. for hospitals or the malls or any kind of like big city stuff. But yeah, my heart, and I consider myself a New Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because there was something, I think I saw it on on your website, because I was on there just scrolling through.
Yeah.
That area of the country, because it's kind of like, it's border town, so you have a lot of different people there. What's the population like there?
My town is super small. It's like, oh my gosh, I think the town's like 200 people. It's very small, but like there's all these small towns, you know, along the way. So we kind of consider ourselves, you know, collectively one space. I've always considered myself like a border girl, you know, and I don't think, I'm trying to think of people like friends I grew up with. Like, I don't think we necessarily say like we're from Anthony or Bosque or La Union or Mesquite or La Mesa or any of these places. We just like, we're from the border, you know, this is this one, you know, stretch of land, our space. And for many of us, we're multi-generational. So our families have been there for hundreds of years, and a lot of us trace back to native roots. Yeah.
How long I've met your mom. How long has your family been there?
We can trace my family back to the 1700s.
Oh, wow.
And then there's native roots in there. So, I mean, that's as long as the historiography of our family goes, but you can trace probably back even further than that, you know? But we just don't have, like, the proof or records of it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So what was the most, like, when you left there, did you leave from there to go to New York City, or was there something in between to cushion that move?
No
What
in
was that
between.
like? Because even
Was-
going from Dallas or Plano to New York City was
Yeah.
big for me, you know, not that I live there, but just to go and
Total culture shock. I mean, I remember trying to think, like, you know, we're just coming into this, like, you know, technology age and electronic age and everything when I was 16. So I had put my money in the bank, and the bank gave me, like, you know, a debit card. And so I'm in New York, and I'm like, oh, I need some cash. So I'm like, how does this thing work? And I'm like sticking it in the ATM, and I stop a stranger, and I was like, can you come here? I need help. I'm trying to get my money out of the bank. The guy's like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from New Mexico. And he's like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 16. He's like, don't you ever ask anyone ever again. You met the nicest New Yorker you'll ever meet. Like, don't ever do that. It's so stupid. And like, it was such a learning experience. And I lived in this hotel at the time that I'm trying to think of what floor it was. The 4th floor was dedicated to all the models or whatever. So there would be like sometimes between 4 and 8 of us in a room at a time. And I mean, just young kids from all over the world. And it's a party on one hand. You're like, wow, my gosh, I'm free. And look at all the crazy things I'm getting myself into. And then at the same time, it's this like big sense of responsibility. Like, I left my area. I was given an opportunity to do something great and make good money and pay for school, and I'm not going to mess this up. So yeah, it was a culture shock, but like I had to decide very early on what road I was going to go down.
did you see other people mess it up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, we all see that. People
Yeah.
choose what they're going to do. And
But a lot of them, they had something to fall back on. And I didn't. I mean, my family's great, but they told me before I left, they're like, you know, we will always be your family. We'll be here for you, whatever road you choose or whatnot in life. But like, you know, our ability to help is limited. So here's this opportunity for you to do it, but the responsibility falls on you. You mess up, you can always come home, but there's no bailing you out, you know? And so every time I would think about, well, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? I thought no one's going to bail me out, so...
did
Yeah.
you realize that, two things I'm going to say, that you were like model beautiful? And when did you realize that? You are, let's say, I mean, so you knew. at some point, or someone told you, however you found out.
That's
Did you
so
know
funny to
that?
me.
And B, you were intelligent. Did you ever feel the need to hide one or the other? And do you now?
So that is such a funny question. And like for my friends that have known me for a really long time, there's two different sides. So where I grew up, like my looks are not the norm, nor do they think it's beautiful. Like I was skinny, scrawny. The girls were very voluptuous, and those were the popular girls. So I was like not cute, not popular, not any of that. And I would get teased, and I'd come home crying. And my dad's like, he's like, Toni, there's something called peaking in life, okay? And he's like, and you haven't peaked yet, and you're gonna thank God one day you haven't peaked yet, And I'm like, what does that mean? I want to peak now, And then my mom was just like, okay, I'm gonna just tell you like it is. Well, if you're not very cute, then you should work on being smart and being funny. At least those things will serve you well, Like looks you can't bank on in life. So I never saw myself as cute or attractive or any of that. And then come high school, I was at the mall, and it's just one of those stories where somebody saw me and was like, I think you could be a model. And of course my mom was like, yes, she wants to be one. And like my mom was so excited. My dad's like, hell no, you're not going to do that. That's stupid, and you can't do it. You can't even walk in heels. You wouldn't know what you're doing. So I don't know. I think for the longest time I felt, and back then too, there weren't a lot of Hispanic girls in the industry. I felt like I was fooling everybody all the time. Like this was going to be my last job. I was fooling everybody. They were going to realize I was not attractive, or there were better girls than me. So I always try to like razzle dazzle and be like funny or fun or smart or trick them into giving me the job. But I didn't ever think I got the job because I was the prettiest girl there. And so I think that always just kind of stuck with me as like, and athletes say this all the time too. You're as good as your last game,
Right.
And so I always felt like, well, as good as my last job. And, similar to the sports industry too, like fashion, your time's limited. Right. So it's not like we get seniority and get better, It's like your time's coming to an end eventually. So like one more day of working or one more year was a big deal. And I just put that money away or paid for school and saw it as such, just
Interesting, because I got called chicken legs all growing up.
Yeah,
Chicken legs. And so
I hear you.
And my mom and them were like, someday, and I was like, I'm still waiting. No, but chicken legs.
I think you turned out pretty
Yeah,
well,
it was
Michelle.
just funny. And then my daughter came home, about to rat Tanner out. She'll be mad. But, now she'll say, and this is going to sound like she's a really bad person, but she's really not. But she said, Mom, your body's not in style anymore. And I was like, Tanner, what does that mean?
What
I think it's
that
a whole
mean?
Kardashian thing or something. I don't know. But didn't she say that? And I was like, you're going to want to take that back. And you might want to leave for a little while before. Since, and she really didn't mean it ugly. Did she?
No, it was a follow-up that I didn't tell you. She said.
Oh, okay.
We got to know what this is. What's
Yeah, we're not gonna say that on air
I was
because
like,
I'm gonna
well,
get
at my
smacked. I'm
age,
too close.
At my age, I'm sure my body's not in style anymore. But anyway, I love that because it was kind of like the triple threat. I mean, they taught you, your mom and your father, I'm sure, taught you to be funny and to rely on. And thank God at the mall, that wasn't almost an ATM situation.
Yeah.
That's the first. No, I'm serious.
No, seriously.
These days, you're like, it was the real deal, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, and she, continued to be such a big mentor and part of my life for such a long time. But there's horror stories. I'm still friends with so many models that I consider growing up together because we started when we were like teenagers, and we'll compare notes like, oh my gosh, did you work for that one client, or did that one thing happen to you too? And it's scary, and it's just, in my opinion, gotten worse. And it's not until recently that we've really had shed a light on what's going on in these industries and more like equity,
Yeah.
you know, for these young girls and women in general, you know,
Yeah, I agree
in the
with that.
business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And we met you, well, I guess when I actually met you was Friscovania, when we were doing Friscovania. And you
Yeah.
have a model behavior, you know. Are you still doing that?
We are. I mean, honestly, it's kind of taken a back seat. I mean, now that I'm, you know, full time in academia and everything, I mean, my passion has all kind of led me down that avenue. But my girlfriends and I were still doing projects together, but not on that scale. That was almost a full time job. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger every year. I think the last year was before COVID, and we had 9,000 people at that event.
Wow.
So it blew up,
Were
and
you
it was
there?
great.
Yeah, we were there.
We were there, yeah.
We
I was
always
like,
just
you guys were there.
Yeah,
every
you were always
year.
like, it'll
Yeah,
be a
they
couple.
were there.
It wasn't
come hang out
Friscovania
for 2
without that.
hours, and we're there for like 4 hours. And
We
it's like,
loved
oh,
it. Yeah,
we're
we just-
they're like, yeah, Laura, come over. Y'all can go home now if you want to. I'm like, oh, we're having fun. We'll pack up and go in a minute.
Yeah, we had.
I mean,
We
you
had
guys were from the
fun.
beginning. Like,
Yeah.
you guys really helped set the tone and the mood for what this event was going to, like, you know, become or kind of like, you know, like
And we always had fun with
grow
it.
into.
Yeah, we had fun at those, and I can see why it needed to be put on hold with all you were doing. I mean,
Yeah, and just not personally, all my friends too. I mean, there were, you know, a lot of them, they're either single mamas or working moms, and they have their careers and businesses and everything. And nobody was getting paid from it. So everybody was just, you know, doing it from the bottom of their heart. And, you know, there comes a point in time where you just got to kind of evaluate everything that you have in your life and on your plate. And you have to say, like, what is this serving? And is this serving like your personal mission as a person, you know? And it did fulfill a lot for me and what I hope to do. But academia has been my lifelong dream, and the stuff I'm doing now is like, I mean, this is
I
it
knew
for
that
me.
too when I first met you. I mean, that's why I asked the question about the beauty and then all the hats that you wear and the intelligence, because it came through the first time that I met you. You didn't
thanks,
rely on. I'm just gonna say it. You know, you didn't rely on one aspect of yourself. You had all these layers. And so, when did you leave? So you were in New York. How long did you model there?
You know, like I continued to have agencies everywhere
Yeah.
up until the point I had Darlington. So
Oh, I didn't know.
I never really stopped until, and that was just like a conscious decision at that point. Because if you work hard, and I think you have a good head on your shoulders and a real like business mind for how to work the industry, you can work in it forever. I still have really good friends that are much older than me too, that are still working all the time and doing great. It's just that was not my path. It was a means to my path,
Right.
but it's not that I was it was like, you know, I was blessed to do it, but I never felt like I belonged in front of the camera. That's just really not my personality. It would take a lot of energy for me to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put on a show. Like, I've got to be this person, like my best exterior self. But I'm really more like an introvert. Yeah.
So, when we met and we were, it was like we would go together to meet with people, foundations to see at the Texas Women's Foundation to
Oh,
see
the
if
grants
they would
review?
get their grants, right?
Uh-huh, yep.
Okay, so you now have gotten a $30,000 grant, I believe, for KUSLI. Is that
Yes.
from the Texas Women's
Yes, from
Foundation?
the Texas Women's Foundation.
So,
Yeah.
you want to tell us a little more about KUSLI?
Yeah, so KUSLI is the Center for U.S. Latin American Initiatives, and I was blessed enough to become an RA for Dr. Rankin, who was running the center at the time, and really learned a lot under her mentorship and guidance about what KUSLI is and actually how she envisioned this organization. within the school. And then, when I was offered the position last year, because Dr. Rankin, stepped down, she's working on some books right now, and she's really busy. I thought, okay, I don't want to fill someone's shoes. And she had her own vision for, what Kuslai was. And I want to see it in a different way, this center. And I'm a U.S.-Mexico border scholar. That's my background and specialty, and she's a Latin Americanist. So I thought, how can we see the border as a gateway to Latin America? So we still keep the Latin American connection,
Right.
but then I'm able to kind of use my space and my knowledge to kind of like navigate this in-between space as a portal gateway to another space.
So, I guess because of some of the, let's just shoot straight about it. Like when I was reading your bio, maybe I'm the only one that needs some of these things explained to me, but I don't think so.
After I thought
I'm
about
gonna say
it,
no. Yeah. So this shows you how smart Toni is, right? Okay. So first of all, tell us about. I'm very curious about this. The Latinx. Okay, where does that stand right now as far as people? The accepting of that term, is that a fair question to ask to you right now? Are you comfortable with that question? Because where's that?
yeah, I mean, it's one of these things I get asked a lot. So I'm like, yeah, I think more of us scholars need to put it in writing, because everybody has a different idea of what the term means. And I think the whether you identify as Hispanic or Latinx or mestizo or however you see yourself in this community, different terms resonate with different people. And these terms have history behind them. So the Latino, Latina is very gender, associated, right? And so what the X comes from is the Aztec X. So it's including indigeneity into the term, because oftentimes the native aspect of the term is left out. And then it also serves as a gender neutral X. And then with the LGBTQ community too, it's another layer on top of that too. So the X serves like multiple purposes. So at first when this new term came into existence, I was like, oh my gosh, another term for our community. It's already hard enough, because so many of us identify as so many things within the community. Right. So it's just, it gets muddled sometimes, and our mission gets muddled because of these terms. We get lost in these terms. And, but then when I understood what the X represented, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get its importance. But also too, like, we got to go back to like even the term Hispanic. When did that come about? The 70s and 80s. What was the reasoning behind it? Oftentimes it's politics that come to either support an idea or way of thinking or go against it. But we can even go further. We can think about, okay, so when did this community first become part of America? And it became part of America after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. So there was a period of time, and I want to say it was something like 40 to 60 years before the Mexican community, Mexican being like always from that space, but then became part of the U.S., before they were recognized on the U.S. Census. Yeah. And so, and then when they came on the U.S. Census, finally, after a long period of time, they were considered Mexicans. So not Mexican American or not American or just as Mexicans. Mm-hmm. And then they disappeared for like 80 years off of the census. And then they come back as Hispanic. And so it's been such a interesting, battle within the community, and like what Hispanic is defined as what's the background of Hispanic, the term coming from the root of Spain, like a Spanish society. So a lot of, colonized people within the community don't want to recognize Spain. So they lean more toward, the Latino. So to try to, leave Spain out of the picture. So it just really, it just depends on what history someone considers themselves. Since I'm from New Mexico, and being that, I talk about hybridization, since my family is Native and Spanish, like I consider Hispanic a root, and most New Mexicans do. It's not something like, oh, we're proud of the Spanish heritage, because it came about through violence, and genocide. But it is also, this disruption in our culture is part of our story. Right. So a lot of us struggle with these terms because they mean different things to so many of us.
Right. But really the struggle to find that is really defining all the struggle that took place. I mean, you're going through, you just told all the struggle, so there's going to be struggle in landing on, just one word cannot
Definitely. Encompass all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
And that's what one word's trying to do, and that's the problem with one word, right?
Yeah,
so it's difficult.
You hit the nail on the head. So I've served on different hiring committees when we bring in these different professors, border scholar professors from all over the world, and it's been interesting to sit there and hear them answer these questions. And oftentimes it's questions from people from other disciplines and not necessarily with the knowledge of this space. And then they want, 1 or 2, 3 sentence answers. Like, so what is the border? Define. I'm like, how do you define, and the best answers always come to, yes, this is one huge territory, but let's look at the size of what this territory is and what it encompasses and all the different histories of this space from both sides of the border, and then understanding it as it used to be one space. I think that way of looking at the space is the best way to see it, instead of trying to define it, with one broad term or one term, 2 to 3 sentences won't do it. Right. No, it's not.
So and so probably the same with your dissertation. This how the United States, it was a whole dissertation on this. So how the United States turned Mexican Americans into the forgotten people. You probably can't answer that in 2 to 3 sentences.
I was like, there's 400 pages of
There's
that.
400 pages of that, Michelle. But I do want to ask if you can answer that in 2 to 3 sentences about something. Give us something, because that grabs you. I mean, that.
Yeah, and it's funny, every time I hear somebody read that, I'm like, oh boy.
No,
I was so committed to it, and I still am very committed to that title, because the more I read and uncovered, and a lot of it being history from journal entries and stuff, history from the regular person, not history curated or history cherry-picked from important political figures, but the everyday person, the more I'm like, wow, what an injustice in so many ways that has happened to this population of people, my people. And they often refer to themselves as los olvidados, the forgotten people. And then you start to look at all the laws that defined this space, and all of the regions in this space, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and seeing they were taking language away from the people. They were repatriating people that had to Mexico that had never been from Mexico, and because they look like they're Mexican. I mean, millions of people. And we have this documentation of it. So it was looking at the space and how far back do we go so that we can see these examples, and then how can we look at these examples, as it pertaining to bodies on the border, pertaining to colorism, pertaining to language, pertaining to assimilation, just so many different aspects and reiterations of this population through these policies and practices and everything. So I wanted a way to like, what I did is everything I read, I came up with a timeline, and I plan on doing this with my graduate. I'm teaching a Latinx politics class in the spring, and I picked some of my favorite books and literary works for my students to read, and I want them to come up with their own timeline of let's define this space to first look at the politics, right? And then have them come up with their own like theory or bodies of concepts to kind of like create what their theory is of this space, this political space. And then once they have the kind of like the framework and parameters, then they can dig deep. And so this part of this archive project is I already have all of these interviews from the border, and I want them to be able to go through the interviews and kind of pick out the interviews that support their theories to what the politics of this area is and are. And so I did that for myself. So I part of your dissertation is to become an expert in this field. So you have to read so much, and you get, depending on the committee you put together, and I have like a history expert from the area. I have a theory expert from the area. I have an immigration expert from the area. So I had all these different experts. And so they gave me like their list of books and sources to read and everything. So I have to read all of their stuff along with all of my stuff. And you're looking at a list between like 400 and 500 works. And then you're tested on it individually by those different, professors, so that you can say, yes, like, I am an expert in this space. So what I did is everything that I read, I came up with a timeline. To me, this is what the border space looks like. And then I started to look at themes within that timeline. All of this has to do with body and like redlining practices, practices that were kept people in this space, either push them down toward the border or push them up toward the border. And you have this, unwanted people that kind of came together in this border space. So like other concepts and stuff that kind of just looked at this space in that regard. And then once I was able to kind of like see these themes and everything, I wanted to apply literary works that, so through artistic expression, support my theory of what these themes are. Just so I could have a little bit of the scholarly aspect of things and also the creative aspect of things.
And I love how you said that you bring the creative aspect into it. I read that. I don't know if it was online or something that you sent to us, but I love that. And I can't remember what you called it. The digital. I mean, you bring in what is it? The oral histories in the community, but you're just talking about the digital archive project. To me, I think that when we can see too, when I love to read, okay, as you do, but some people, I think they just need to see it with their eyes, see that space, see that timeline, see that space, and to answer like those questions that we can't answer in 2 to 3 sentences or answer with one word. They need to see that so that then it can hit them in their in their solar plexus and hit them in their heart or wherever it needs to be hit to know what's going on. Instead of just being
learns
told.
Differently,
right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. I know I asked something that is very.
It's great. There's so many different layers to this answer. And one thing that I kind of embraced that I had not embraced, I think, for the longest time is I have all these different aspects of self. And I was always like, oh, this is fashion and this stays over here. This is academia and this stays here. These types of friends stay here and this stays here. I didn't see how they all connected. And then I read, I can't remember, it was like 6 years ago, Nick Husainis is called Unflattening, and it was Columbia University and Harvard University, I think is his background. But professor, and this was his dissertation was a graphic novel on pedagogy. And I'm like, wow, it was such a cool way of looking at how to our knowledge production and how we learn and how we share with others. And he was saying we need to stop this like linear sequential way of teaching others, because we don't learn like that. We hear music, we read something, we see something all at the same time. All of our senses are going at the same time, but yet we want to, you sit here, you read this like this, you read this in this order, and this is how we're going to approach all subjects. Like, no, that's not the way we think. And so I was like, why do I have to approach my work this way? Because I have the creative side to me, I have the scholarly side to me. I also have my fashion background that lends to like aesthetic studies as well. So like, how can I weave all of that together and make it work?
Right.
Obviously, you have to argue this stuff and do a proposal. And sometimes people have this fear of the unknown, but you get the right people. I keep talking about this collaboration. You get the right people to kind of like support you, then that's it. The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last month when we did the event at for your
Yeah.
class, right?
That was one
You
of
had the
those
video, informational video for the whole program here, right?
Yeah.
Is that because I was looking for it on the website, on your website.
Yeah.
Where's that video? Can we get a copy and we can share it out?
Oh.
Is it okay to share out?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Would love that. So the funny thing is, this just goes to like my awesome collaboration group, but like my friend Drew and from Karis Media, that's his company. He's been my videographer forever. You guys probably remembered him at all the Friscovania stuff. And then my friend Simon Lopez does all the photography and everything. And I told them, I'm like, guys, I want to move in this academic space now, and my mind is going toward interviewing multi-generational families that have been on the border for hundreds of years, and then simultaneously looking at recent immigrants, because I want to show the kind of like the juxtaposition and the layering that goes on in this space to understand the mindset, because so much of what we hear about the border, we know about the border, comes from people that are outsiders. They're not insiders to the border, and they're passing judgment and coming up with big general ideas of what the border space is. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. When did you, grow up on the border? Like, how do you know this? So I'm like, but what I've quickly learned in academia is like, you need to channel your passion. Talking at people doesn't fix the situation, and it also doesn't encourage people to kind of like make up their mind on their own. So what better way than sharing the stories of people going through this, whether they've been there for hundreds of years or whether they're recent immigrants to the country. So we literally had just put that together that day, that video, because I'm like, I need to be able to show this at the storytelling event, because it is designed to support this project, right? Well, if people want to know about the project, they need to be able to see one of our video interviews. So I was like, Drew, can you put kind of a compilation of something together? And I thought I knew one story in particular, the mother and son immigration story would be the most, would really just have the most impact on people at the event. And he's like, yeah. So we just started talking about what aspects of that interview would really kind of resonate with people. And then, just kind of layering that event together so that it was like highlighting students, bringing Mr. Sergio Troncoso, renowned border scholar, into the mix too, and his philosophies and his background. And he's also a storyteller as well. So just kind of layering all these people, and then like, this is also a spiritual space too. And then we're talking about, Day of the Dead and honoring history. So like how do we bring in, besides storytelling, another layer of telling stories, music, and the spiritual element of things, the carrying the spirit through. So I'm like, well, of course, Michelle and Roger, they need to be a part of this too. So it was like kind of, I don't want to say on the fly. I mean, we'd been working on it for a while, but the video was very last minute because I'm like, people are going to be like, well, what about the digital archive? And we're going to miss that opportunity to show something special.
I liked it because it actually, it put, basically faces to the story, and it really kind of carried it over.
Well, I think
Thank
that when
you.
you do things, that's one thing about you, is that you will pivot if it need to pivot. I mean, if you need to do something on the fly, I know that from when we were working together.
Yeah.
You would ask questions, and I remember this, and poignant questions of the people we were interviewing, and you would gauge their ability to do that, or were they just stuck in, this is how we're going to do it all the time, right? So that ability to, this is needed, let's get it done to make it happen. So I don't think that's doing it on the fly. It is on the fly, but people don't know that necessarily. And now, Matt, you'll know that I'll point it out if it's on the fly. I'll be like, okay, now y'all, this is on the fly. I'm learning not to do that. I don't know that I'm learning, but I'm working on it, right? He's going to answer.
Slowly getting better.
Very
Whoa.
turtle speed.
Very slowly. It's like I have to point out.
You got to do what works for you, though. You know what I mean?
I'm going to point out everything I do wrong. Well, kind of when you had it pointed out your whole life, it's hard to not. I love my parents, but when you had it pointed out to you your whole life, you point it out, right? Yep. So she talked about, so Toni was talking about the different hats. Do you want to, I had a long question. It's supposed to be mine. Do you want me to?
Go ahead and do it.
Okay, I'm going to read it. Okay, so here it is.
Because you better be ready for this one.
No, it's like, we have some good questions here.
I had the easy one.
I love that, so I broke some of your stuff. We'll just do it here. So we talked about your border, and we talked about that. Okay. You went on to say that I dedicate my journey to following my spiritual gut. Some of the most important chapters and experiences of my life have been shaped by this spiritual guidance. And I cannot see what time it is.
9 minutes.
Okay. So we're going to rush through these. Guys got good stuff here.
So
can you share some of these? How did they shape you? So you had out of body experiences as a child. Mm-hmm. Do you mind telling us about one of them?
Yeah. No, I was just talking to a really good friend the other day about doing this, and I'm like, I really want to share more spiritual stuff because I think that's the foundation for us as humans, right? Mm-hmm. We all have this spiritual, quality and element to us, and the spirit lives on. What does that look like? And how can we normalize that? Because there's always I don't want to say shame, but, that's different or whatever. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us have experienced a lot of similar things. We just don't want to talk about it. And then I think I was telling you before we went totally on air that I recently was teaching a class, and one of my students I'm collecting ghost stories or spirit stories. And, I was just giggling at them because I love my students and I love how free they are, and everything. And I'm like, I want to bottle that up. That's perfect. That needs to be your approach to writing. It's just let's just put it all out there. And so they're like, Dr. Munoz-Hunt, do you have any? And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I have a ton. And they're like, you do? And then I said, well, let me use some fast little ones. And I started giving them some examples, and they're like, oh my gosh. And they couldn't believe I was sharing stuff like that. And afterwards they thanked me and they shared their experience. And it was such a important lesson for me. That I think the best teachers are ones that engage and not talk at or to, but engage with. This is a dialogical process. We should learn from each other and share with each other. And so, as a child, and you don't know that it's different until people start telling you oh, well, we don't really do that, or that hasn't happened. But I played a lot by myself growing up in the country and everything. And so I would be playing with myself or playing with some toys. I got be careful there. Yeah. So I'd be playing, and then I would kind of get into this space where I was kind of watching myself playing, and then I'm like, wow, I can see myself playing. And then I would kind of like step back even further. And then I could see myself from far away playing. Mm-hmm. And then my friend was like, he had some similar experiences and was like, why don't you go a little further and tell me, like, okay. I said, so depending on how in touch I was with this, playing this, I guess I was meditating at the time, is I could go further and further back. And I said, I started seeing myself from space. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, I'm in space, like, and I'm with stars, but I don't know what this means. I'm with stars because that's not, I grew up Catholic, so it's not
right.
how we viewed like heaven or this other space, I'm with like stars. And then it wasn't, I think all these spiritual things that were happening to me in life, like later on, there were connections to it. So I had a friend of mine who like died in a car crash, but came back to life on the operating
right.
table. And she was just very religious. And so it really like kind of traumatized her. And she's like, it's not at all how I imagined heaven to be. She's like, I forgot about my child. Like, she's like, I'm so ashamed of myself. I forgot, like, I had a child here. Like, it's like I was so connected with everybody. She goes, I was in space. And I was like, tell me about this. She goes, but it wasn't space, like dark space. It was colorful space and like stars. And I was like, that's exactly what I experienced as a child. I was like listening to her saying that. And I'm like, wow. Like, I needed to. And we were never put together on jobs because we were each other's competition. So you don't put two people that are competitors on a job. You usually pick one of those people. So it was so important that we were together on that job at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you were kind enough to give an endorsement or blurb for my book, Spirits Unveiled, and that has a lot of, I'm vulnerable in that book. In the first book, The Magic of Connection, we're talking about everything being all, and you talk about that, of being, connection with the universe. Can you share some about these? How did they shape you? And, about the connection with the universe. And so it seems to me, what I wrote in the second book is I wrote, for me, that people who have had either out-of-body experiences, they've astral traveled, they've had near-death experiences, it's just been my experience that some of those people that either remember those, they tend to be, for lack of a better word, more intuitive. And I don't mean that as they're better than. They just have the stories where they actually, I'll use the word psychic, and I'm reclaiming that word because psychic it's very close to the word faith. Right?
Yeah.
Believing something you can't see. And so I say that, and people that have been interviewed, they'll ask, is that saying other people aren't? I'm like, no, it just seems to be that the people, and they seem to be more in tune with that spiritual, and everything being connected. Yeah. And so I love that you wrote that. And the other thing is, and Roger, this is where you come in. You can do the bottom of right here. Yeah.
Not even the same page.
So, but I love that you wrote that because you were kind enough to write the blurb for the book, and then in that one thing you tied both of the books together, and I thought that's no wonder we clicked. And I want to say one more thing. I think we said this before we went on the air. When we met, you were so kind about all the crystals. I think that was before we went on the air. I had crystals at our meetings. Yeah. And no one was ever rude about it or ugly or anything like that. No. But they weren't as accepted back then. And in meetings and things like that. And that's, Roger, when I used to take my water bottle, and this is funny. And I had
crystals in the water.
And I have crystals in them.
And now everybody's doing it.
But one of them was very toxic, and I taught a crystal
malachite.
I taught a crystal certification class, and I'd be shaking my water bottle. I think it was when I was on the, if I was on the financial group, that was a big mistake to ever put me on that. But I was in one of the groups where I was like, woo, over my head. But and I had it, and I remember shaking the bottle, and then Roger goes, do you see all that brown stuff going up from your malachite? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. He goes, why don't you check your little toxic book of the ones you're not supposed to put directly in the water?
She had it in there for like 2
And
weeks.
I was like,
See, I couldn't be trusted
like
to
I
do
am
that.
so. You're supposed to always check the toxic list, And so, yeah, it was really, really funny. I was like, I'm teaching a certification class of what don't put directly in the water, and I literally was taking it to meetings for like weeks of when we were meeting. It was not good, and Roger's never let me. No, never will, right?
No.
Is it iron or copper?
Copper.
Copper.
She basically had copper
Or
in her
lead.
water drinking.
Or something.
It probably had lead. Yeah,
it
it
probably had
a little
lead in it
too.
It was anything I was
I see. I wouldn't know that.
I
I
try
wouldn't
to
know
use
that
that
until
as-
something like
Well,
fell
there's a-
off.
I try to use that as an excuse when she goes off on a tangent. Like it's
Squirrel,
just the
copper's
just the
coming
copper
back,
malachite.
copper, that brown stuff,
Yeah,
coming up,
drinking
looked
too
like
much.
breast to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, you
Okay.
want to do it?
All right.
It's going to be Michelle's.
This is a book in itself, just so you know. All right. You said you. I used to compartmentalize my life like components of it only existed in separate spaces, and now I weave them together with the spiritual aspects leading everything else.
Yeah.
That's only part of that, by the way. This is a Michelle writing, in case you want to know.
Here's the question.
Here's actually the question for that.
Here's the question.
I was like,
That
okay.
was your
See,
statement.
I
I love
turned
this
everything
one.
into
This
a
is
question. I
the-
was ready to
it's-
answer something
the
that wasn't
question's
even a
half a
question.
page.
Okay. This is the attorney
Yes.
part.
You are an extremely intelligent woman who truly wants others to succeed. Many might opine. You can tell she wrote that, right? Opine that your ability to compartmentalize is how you have worn the hats of model, wife, mother, NFL owner of the Super Bowl champions, Chiefs, Chicago Bulls, FC Dallas, Model Behaviors, Texas Women's Foundation member, PhD professor, director of CUSA, winning author, Mellon Applied History Fellow. However, you state it is you're weaving together of all of them spiritually instead of compartmentalizing. I think this is something everyone struggles with, but especially women. Could you please give us all some pointers on how to weave this tapestry instead of feeling that each undertaking has to be a separate work of wonder?
That was so good.
Good group. That's a book right
That
there.
I mean, that is a great question, and I think it just brings us back to like this pressure of what it is to be a woman. But often I like take a look at that pressure, and it's supported by other women doing it. It's not necessarily even the men, I think, like putting that pressure on us as much as it is other women. And I think just having a good tribe of people around, right? And I remember before I had kids, because I was never one that, this is kind of I don't want to go off on the spiritual tangent on that, but I wasn't sure if I would have kids. Like
Same.
It's not like I
Same.
yearned for having children or my
Totally
clock was
same.
ticking or any of that. Yeah, so I was like, if I'm blessed with kids, great, and if I'm not, I had, when I was a child, somebody visit me, a spiritual entity that told me I would have 2 children. But I also would have a hard time having children. So I was like, what does that mean? I'm going to have a hard time having children, but I'm going to have children? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I never really, like, put much thought into it. But I always thought, well, maybe I'll have trouble having children, so I might not have children. And then, I'm blessed with 2 girls, and I'm like, that's so not a coincidence. But when I was pregnant with Darlington, I had asked, a friend of mine that was this big powerhouse in counsel, attorney for a huge company, and just a wonderful person. And she kind of does it all. I'm like, how do you do it all and do it well? And she goes, I don't try to do it all and do it well on the same day. And I was like, that's the best.
That's good.
She goes, some days I'm 100% mom. Some days I'm 100%, attorney. Some days I'm 100% this and that. But she goes, I don't spread myself thin. I can't be it all every day.
Right.
And I mean, like this morning, I've been going since the morning, this morning. Kid stuff, student stuff, parties for my students, this, that, like all kinds of things. And then here, I try not to do that too often where I'm doing everything in one day, because I want to be able to like give it all, you know, but some days it works like that. Then I have a day where I just kind of like, you know, release and decompress and let it all, you know, out. Like, since I'm an introvert, like I need to have a day where I regroup and everything. And then just really relying on the connections. I always come back to connections, but I think, you know, you talk about like intuition and whatnot. I have these important people in my life that I have this connection to, because I know I can rely on them. And like you were talking about the way I pivot, I always know I can only bring so much to the table. Whatever idea or whatever I have, that's why I have this amazing group of people around me, because I want them to make me better. Right. So if they're like, hey, you know what, I have a great idea for this, or let's do what, I'm like, okay, yeah, I like that. All right, so we're going to extend this, or we'll do, you know, I'll massage it in, because first of all, I want everyone to feel heard and know that they're an important part of the team. And then I know that they're here to make everything better. So relying on that, what does that look like? And not having to be this amazing individual, but being part of this collective. It's very much my culture too. And so I stopped trying to be the superhero. And then also knowing too, like, where I'm most effective, you know? I let Dan do Dan. Because I've just kind of realized over the years that my input is needed to a certain extent, and then it's not needed, or it doesn't really make a difference, or whatnot. And I'm like, okay, I have the things that I'm passionate about, and he has the things that he's passionate about, and I can't effectuate that stuff. Right. And I don't really make an impact here. So we only have so much energy. Is it being put in the right places, you know? And
you have good boundaries on it too, because you
For
have
sure.
like, I only answer texts this many times, you know, a week.
Yeah.
I don't check my email. This is when I check my email. I mean, you have really good boundaries around that too, which I think is a huge thing. I mean, you stick to it. From what I can
really
tell. I mean,
try
you're
to.
really good at that. And so I think those are good pointers. And I do agree with you that I think women are sometimes harder. I don't think you said this, but I'll say it. I think women are, I'll say it, sometimes we're harder on each other.
Yeah.
I will, and maybe expect more from each other and push each other a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
It was interesting, and this might not happen now. I don't really want to end on this, but it was interesting at law firms, because when it would come to a vote for women to be partner in law firms, it was very interesting, because people would think that, and this is so off subject, but they would think that, oh, the women they're hitting a ceiling. I was in on some of those votes.
Yeah.
And it was not the men holding the women back. The votes came. And so it's interesting how women can support women, or they can choose not to support women. And to have, and that's not what you were saying. I'm saying that.
No, but I'm saying that as well. But we've created this environment for each other to be hard on each other too. So it's just deconstructing that environment and reconstructing it in a healthier way, and having those boundaries, and saying, like, I was recently kind of shamed about, why don't I do a little more for like my husband's work or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, I'm sorry, but that's his stuff. And I've got mine. And I'm my own person.
You do a lot.
Yeah, and I'm
we
like,
just read a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm like, I won't let that bother me, because I'm not going to be shamed.
Yeah.
You know, and also considering the source of the shaming, because I think happy people want other people to be happy. It's often coming, from people that don't feel fulfilled themselves. And so just taking a look at that and just saying, okay, well, you got to find your happiness, you know, don't come rain on this parade.
Right.
You know?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you did come tonight. I still can't see the
Thank
time.
you
But
for
I
having
want to
me.
ask you, Darlington,
Yes.
what's her spirit animal? Or her, whatever you want to call it.
Darlington.
You can get back to us. What's yours?
I'll tell you. So a very close friend of mine calls her Lady D. Like Darlington is very old soul and kind of I don't know what her spirit animal is. She'll
Also,
keep you
so a lot of wisdom.
a lot of wisdom and a lot of accountability because she'll
Maybe
be
an
like,
owl.
maybe.
Or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah. I never thought about it.
Tennyson.
Never. She's the wild child, like balls to the wall, crazy kid, funny as heck. Knows she's funny and jumps both feet in. Like they are two totally different.
They're cute as can be.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, I
both
know.
run- They're both
That's why I
running
had to
around
ask.
the last at that fin and just running up back and forth and
What's
yeah.
your,
They're
what's
the
your
I just
animal spirit, do you think?
You know, I always kind of thought it was like the owl,
I think so too.
but
But you probably have more than one. I do.
I always say it's my grandparents. Like there's something about them that like I'm like they were my spirit animals. My grandfather had this quiet strength where like he could come in a room and dominate.
Yeah.
And then my grandma was the storyteller and the uniter and everything. And it's like this. And
So ancestral
Yeah,
spirits,
yeah.
guides too. Yeah.
But I feel like our spirits are tied to so many different energies. And some of them will be, you know, animals and other spirits and entities and native population. We believe the spirit is in every element.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So are the Kansas City Chiefs going to win the Super Bowl?
Yes. I mean, every year they're going to win the Super Bowl. So,
And what is your next endeavor at UTD? We'll stop with that.
Yep.
Do you have anything else? Yeah. The next classes.
yeah.
Where are we? So are y'all on the
We wrapped up
semester?
the fall semester, and now we're going to be going into spring semester. And I told you guys about the politics class, but I always do a creative writing workshop as well. But I'm going to do a different thing this next workshop. A lot of it's because I have repeat students. I want to give them something new to look at, but I want them to take some of these interviews that we've done in the
Yeah.
digital archive and turn them into creative pieces. So they'll look at the interviews and then they'll build bios for characters that they like, fictional characters that they invent or whatever. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine who's a publisher, and she's like, I'll publish that book. Give me 25 stories and I'll publish that
Oh, wow,
book.
good.
And I've so far in the 3-4 semesters I've been teaching creative writing, I have 4 of my students published.
Well, I
So-
need to come to her class.
Oh,
I
I don't
need to
think you
add
need
you-
any help, Michelle. You need to
yeah, I
come
do.
help my students.
You know what you were talking about earlier.
Do their books.
Whenever we were talking about, I didn't feel like I was. I think it was modeling. It was like the imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I have that totally with
Yeah.
writing, because yeah. So I need. What do you call it when you go to a class? I can't remember the term. We audit the class. You
Yeah,
sit in the
uh-huh,
class. Excuse me. I can't sign up and go back to school again. That would never happen, would it?
No.
I just.
She'd sign up and never show up.
I would be like,
go the first
I'm
2
gonna
days.
not make an A+ in Dr. Hunt's class, but no,
I
need
teach
to
a
come
hybrid
audit the
class too, so I have students with like anxiety after COVID and stuff that have a hard time coming to class, so they participate online, and they turn in beautiful work. They just cannot physically be in that space, and I'm like, I'm gonna have the most creative people in my classes because that's what creative writing is, and so I need to honor where they're at. You know, it's one thing to like, okay, you're not doing the work and you're just pretending you're online or whatever,
Yeah.
and you just log in. That's not going to fly because I'm going to ask you questions, and if you can't answer, like
Right.
the minute I ask you, then you're not participating. But no, they've been great. But, you know, just trying to kind of like cultivate this, this supportive space for each other.
Right.
And some of that is going to have to be, online to be able to have everybody be a part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you? I know Roger mentioned your...
My website, ToniMunoz-Hunt.com, or Toni.Munoz@utdallas.edu. Yeah.
And with Kuzlight, is that something that people now can get involved with from the community, or is that still just,
I'm like, well, funny you asked, Michelle. I want to build an advisory board because I really want, and I think we've talked about this for Texas Women's Foundation. To me, it's not bringing on names, it's bringing on people that want to make a difference and be a part of what we're doing, especially with this archive project, because digital history and look what you guys are doing with your podcast and everything now. We're layering media now and how we share information. Like, this is the next stage in academia. We're going to be incorporating doing this more. And it's really important to me that this space be archived because it's misrepresented right now. So seeing, bring people on to that space, into this space that want to be a part of this and want to help build and grow this, but also be a part of, we have a delegado program, which is ambassador program for our students, both undergrad and graduate. So I'd like to be able to offer the undergrad scholarships and graduate students fellowships. So it's an honor to be a part of this, this
so
center.
like a fundraising aspect to that,
Yeah, but
Right.
something that's tangible and not I want people to be more concerned about serving
Right.
and that just be an added
understand.
bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we can go a little nuts.
We get
you
it.
know?
Get
And
lost
then
in
in academia too, we have a lot of funds that match stuff. So it's raise
Right.
10 or raise 50 and then the, other funds will
be matched.
Yep. So just kind of being more mindful and strategic about that space in the future, and getting the right community partners to be a part of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
for
much
having
for
me.
coming. I know it's been a long day, and thank you, Roger. Anything coming up this week that you,
Okay,
all our
so
sales?
yeah, well, Monday we started our 12 days of Christmas deals at SoulTopia. So each day has something new. Just check your emails, or we've been sending it out by text and email the morning of. So tomorrow actually will be incense and incense burners, things like that, cones, cone burners, stuff like that. But there's something new every day. And then this weekend is actually Sunday is our SoulTopia Sensation Psychic Fair. So we do have readings. They're 20-minute sessions, $25. Need to go ahead online now and start pre-booking. I saw a lot of those come through today. Plus, it is our holiday celebration for the Sensation. So we will have giveaways every hour on the hour, plus contests with best dress. What else?
Best dress meaning best festive.
Best
I
festive
think,
wear.
I think if you come in a reindeer suit,
I would love that.
Roger will give you a prize.
We're going to give you
Come
extra.
in a
We're going to give
snowman suit,
some
Roger
different
will
prizes.
give you a prize.
But we'll be giving the tickets out based off of that also for the drawing each hour. If you show up in a dress festively, you're going to get extra tickets.
That's why we
Stuff
always
like that,
love
too.
Friscovania, right? Because
That's
we always
right.
got to dress up.
All
right?
about the costumes.
Right? Yeah.
Frisco's Vania is happy to get. Let's go get something now. I would run out and start buying stuff.
Every time we used to do these dress ups for every
We got
SoulTopia
bins of
Sensation.
stuff for dress up.
And I was like,
awesome.
we are spending every single thing we're
Oh, we go
making
out.
on these costumes. So now
Yeah.
Now you can repurpose them because
That's
we're
what
going to
I keep
have our Dia
telling
de
her.
Muertos
We're-
events.
yeah.
So you guys will repurpose that every year.
So, but where do they sign up for the readings this
For
week?
the readings, go to SoulTopiaPsychicFair.com. So just SoulTopiaPsychicFair.com. You click which location, even virtual. So we do have one virtual reading, Lexi reader this week or this weekend. It's Lexi. But then you can also pick Carrollton, you can pick Bishop Arts, or you can pick Frisco. We have readers and healers at all locations.
Yeah. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And guys, join us next week. Do we have somebody on next week? Do you know?
It'll just be us.
It'll be us, just us. We'll find something really good to talk about then. All right. Good night, guys. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share. We'll see y'all next week. Good night. Bye.
Thanks for listening to SoulWhat, a SoulTopia production. If you're intrigued, searching, or looking to schedule a reading of your very own, visit us in sunny Dallas, Texas, or visit us online at facebook.com/SoulTopia Holistic Boutique. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting platform to be the first to hear new episodes every Tuesday at 7:30 Central.